Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another exciting day in the Senate ED&A. We have going to open the hearing on House Bill 1355, and I will recognize Representative Edwards to introduce the bill. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Representative Jess Edwards, representing Rockingham 31. That's Auburn, Chester, Candia, and Deerfield. Today, I'm filling in for Representative Mike Moffitt. He's the chairman of our Federal and Veterans Affairs Committee in the House. House Bill 1355 has a fairly straightforward objective. It proposes some minor modifications or increased language in the existing RSA. What it is intended to do is to enable the Guard to better retain the military technicians that are so fundamental to the sound operation of our National Guard units. On a day-to-day basis, we end up having a full-time employee, basically a federal employee, that really does the care and feeding of that unit in between drill periods. And that person basically fills in a tremendous amount for what the commander may want done during the period in between drills. These are very valuable people. Experience is really important. And because of the way the federal reenlistment structure is set up, after 12 years, they're no longer eligible for the reenlistment bonuses. And the $6,000 would go a long way to maintaining our commitment to keeping quality people in jobs that are very important for us. This bill passed out of its committee in the House unanimously, got a voice vote, came over to Finance, passed Finance Committee unanimously, and left the House with a voice vote. So hopefully you all are as excited about this as we are.
Thank you, Representative. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
General? This must be Lieutenant Brooks with you?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, sir.
All right.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. For the record, I'm Major General David Michaelitis, the Adjutant General for the New Hampshire National Guard. And with me here today is Lieutenant Colonel Brooks Hayward, our Recruiting Retention Commander. So like any employer in the state of New Hampshire, there's a competition for talent. Right, the last time I checked, the New Hampshire unemployment rate was just under 3%. The New Hampshire Army National Guard unemployment rate is hovering about 12%. So out of 1,800 service members in the New Hampshire Army National Guard, we have over 200 vacancies. So why do we have 200 vacancies? A couple of reasons, right? It's a tough job market out there, labor market. Childhood obesity, prescription medication, the decline in propensity to serve are all affecting our ability to assess or bring in new accessions into the Army Guard and Air National Guard. And on the other side of it is, we have two levers that we can work with, trying to get people in and trying to retain the people that we do have in. So at 12% unemployment rate, as we struggle with trying to get new accessions in, our challenge is we've also grown. We've grown new units in the state of New Hampshire, engineer units to help us for domestic operations in the event of a state emergency. So what are the levers or mechanisms that we can do? We can put money at trying to get referrals, of which we thank the legislature because you all passed a bill on our behalf last year to allow us a $1,000 referral bonus. So if you refer someone to join the National Guard, you get a $1,000 referral bonus. So we thank you for that. This time, we're trying to retain our formations. We're trying to retain our people, our sergeants. So around the 6 to 12 year mark, what we're finding out is with the change in the military retirement system, it's now a hybrid 401k system. Our sergeants are leaving between 6 to 12 years of service. So how to retain them? We want to give them a financial incentive. So in the event there is no federal retention bonus, we want to offer those who are now eligible a state retention bonus. And that's what this bill does. This allows us the authority to go up, spend up to $6,000 for 6-year reenlistment for sergeants in their mid-career pay grade to hopefully stay in our formation. That's what we're trying to do.
Thank you. So I guess the first question that brings to mind for me is, $6,000 is a lot of money, of course, but what does it cost you if you lose that person from your ranks and then you have to retrain someone to fill in that position?
I don't have an exact number, but I would say probably hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Be well north of 6,000?
Yes.
So this is
Yeah.
a relatively good investment for us to
Yes.
make in order to keep that talent within.
And out of about the 2,900 service members in the New Hampshire Army and Air National Guard, this really applies to probably less than 200. So the federal government, Department of Defense, will typically apply bonuses. So right now, the Air Force and Air National Guard aren't doing well. And so they're offering up to $50,000 to $90,000 bonuses for people to join. So those are the two major levers. So there's a gap, though, with the retention lever. If the Department of Defense or the Army National Guard says, hey, listen, like your cyber personnel or your military police aren't eligible, this allows us to make up the gap in who's eligible for a retention bonus.
Okay. Do you have anything you wanted to add? Or?
I didn't have anything specifically to add, maybe to also point out that due to, much like the representative prior to us spoke of, the full-time staff within the New Hampshire National Guard does not apply for bonuses, period. They're ineligible for a federal bonus.
Okay.
For those that are federal technicians, they could easily be the exact same rank and potentially do the exact same military job as another soldier within the New Hampshire National Guard who does apply for, who is able to receive a bonus. Mm-hmm. So what this bill also does is kind of level that and create some equity and equality for those individuals that just because they work full time, they shouldn't essentially be punished for losing a reenlistment bonus for essentially doing the same job.
Okay, thank you. Questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. Kevin Grady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. For the record, my name is Kevin Grady. I am a 25-year Air Force veteran and a 25-year resident of the town of Hooksett, New Hampshire. Today I'm here representing the 20-member organization of the State Veterans Advisory Committee, and we're chartered by State RSA 115:A-8 to speak for the veteran community in New Hampshire. And one of the things we do is look at bills coming before the legislature. That we pick out the ones that have military impact, and then we take an opinion on those, and I come and tell you what that position is. We fully support this legislation and hope that you'll find it ought to pass. I want to leave you with 3 thoughts that you probably haven't heard too much about maybe, but are pretty obvious to us, and that they're trying to save and retain these folks. I'm going to focus pretty much on the retention piece of all of this. The first one, and I will cite my work because I used to teach Air Force Junior ROTC down at Auburn High School for 11 years, and you got to cite your sources. And so my source for this is actually a fireside chat that I saw between the outgoing Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, Joanne Barnes, who was really sharp, with the Air and Space Forces Association President Orville Wright. And she said 10 or 15 years ago, the Air Force benefits package, for example, of medical benefits, dental benefits, retirement system, was pretty attractive. Now everybody has it. We're all competing for that same talent pool, but now your big box retailers, your fast food restaurants even, have 401ks, they have medical dental packages. So that benefits package is not as attractive as it was 10 or 15 years ago. And a bill like this would actually help us at least a little bit along those lines. My last job in the Air Force, I was sitting behind a big steel desk. And if you want to put a fighter pilot behind a desk, the only thing that matters is where's the desk, and it was in Germany, so that part was good. But I was in charge of trying to help the Air Force manage their rated pilot force. And I had a hard time convincing the people that did full-time personnel stuff for a living why, if I have 1,000 fighter pilots today and one of them leaves and I replace them with somebody else right out of pilot training, on paper I've still got 1,000 fighter pilots. Yes, but you traded away somebody with 12 years of experience who can lead flights and will be leading the charge into combat, as opposed to somebody who's going to be a wingman and a combat liability for a little while. You've essentially done the Air Force equivalent of trading away the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, for the 199th pick in next year's draft and hoping that he pans out. So where we can retain these folks, especially with this, is great. The last part that I think is important is that if you look at where this bill affects those soldiers and airmen, it's late 20s, early 30s. They're making decisions on, am I going to raise my family here? Am I going to, look for permanent employment in New Hampshire? We'd like them to do that. So anything even like this, even if it only attracts a handful of folks, we think that that's well done. And again, we fully support this bill, and subject to your questions, that's all I wanted to tell you this morning.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? All right, seeing none,
Thank you.
Anybody else that wants to testify on House Bill 1355? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing. I'll take a motion to go into exec.
So moved. Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion on this bill.
Ought to pass.
We have a motion of ought to pass in a second. Further discussion.
I will just briefly say thank you to everybody here for their service, and we're happy to support you, and thanks for bringing this to us.
And I will echo that sentiment. We appreciate you coming in and certainly what you do for our country, so thank you. Further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any volunteers to take this one out?
I'll take it out.
All right, Senator General will take it out. Motion to come out of exec?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we will open the hearing on House Bill 1065. Is Rep. Aaron here? Are you going to cover? Okay. Come on up, Representative. Good morning. Welcome to Senate EDA.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee and senators. I'm State Representative Hope Damon, Sullivan District 8, the towns of Ackworth, Langdon, Leominster, Goshen, Washington, Springfield, Sunapee, and Claremont. And I am here to introduce House Bill 1065, which is in part initiated by constituent request in two of those communities. What this bill does, it's really very straightforward, I think. It changes current statutes so that fire sprinklers would not be required in residential buildings for 4 units or less. The current statute is 2 units or less. Obviously, the buildings need to be in compliance with the rest of the state fire code to maintain safety for individuals. This bill was processed through the Special Committee on Housing and was on the consent calendar at Full House. And it is one of the Special Committee on Housing's endeavors to make it easier to increasing housing. For instance, in Claremont, where there are many really rather lovely, old, large homes that could be 3 or 4 apartments, and the cost of sprinklers is prohibitive in addition to the rest of the building costs to do that. So we hope that this will help people be able to increase housing opportunities. I do have an amendment to bring forward. I don't know what your protocol is for circulating.
Right over there.
Thank you. Can you just leave it with me? Yeah. Thanks. The amendment simply adds that municipalities cannot put in stricter requirements than what this proposed statute would say, so that the municipality can't basically override the statute and go back to 2 sprinklers per residential building. There are folks behind me who have a lot more expertise in fire code, building code, and law. I'm happy to try to answer questions or defer to them as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thanks for your testimony.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Rep. McConkey. Good morning and welcome back to EDA.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Pearl. Senators. Pleasure to be before you one more time. And when Representative Damon said there would be people with far more information, she was not referring to this representative. I can tell you, though, I was part of the Special Committee on Housing. We looked at what were deterrents, what were cost factors. Loved the conversation we had with the fire chief, where the regulation president was when you went to 3 units. And we had a great discussion. We got it from 3 to 4, not seeing an issue. Representative Damon outlined this extremely well. I will just add one item where her district has a lot of nice, big Victorian homes. We're starting to get to a point in the Conway area and around us, the space that was built for commercial purposes is no longer occupied. So if it's not a mixed use homes with a business, then this would permit up to 4 units to be built inside those structures, no more than 4. So I think as we look at the landscape and boarded up buildings in this town and so forth, I see it as just being a tremendous benefit to families and to owners of property. That's all I have for you, sir.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Comment, Senator Gendro?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you. This is very exciting because in my district, there are a lot of older houses too. And there's many of them up in the Gorham area that have sat vacant for a long time. And it also will help as far as with increasing the housing market, provide more housing. So I'm excited about this.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, and for infill purposes, it is wonderful. I agree.
Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thanks for your testimony.
Thank you.
Marshall Toomey. Good morning, welcome back.
Good morning, thank you. Sean Toomey, State Fire Marshal for the record. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly this morning. This is a little bit of an interesting one for me. I don't believe the bill is necessary, and I only say that because we addressed this in Senate Bill 599 in the State Fire Code. The State Building Code, the Board of Fire Control heard this message loud and clear that we needed to address this issue around 3 and 4 family housing. And we I brought a group together over the past summer, last year, and we worked to address, and we made some amendments for the building code and for the fire code, and they went through the Board of Fire Control, and they went through the Building Code Review Board, thoughtful amendments to address this very issue. House Bill 1059 on the building code has that amendment in there for ratification. Senator Pearl, you brought us this, the fire code update that was ratified in that bill through the Senate, and it's sitting on the consent calendar, waiting to go on the consent calendar of the House. It passed that ED&A unanimously. So I think my only hesitation about having a separate bill in information and statutes, I feel like we've worked. It's going to potentially muddy the waters a little bit. That's my only, I guess, pause, if you would. We have worked very hard over the last several years, I believe, to try to establish what the state building code and what the state fire code is, what the state amendments are, and try to make it very clear, and not to try to have code amendments in the statutes separately, and let the boards vet it out, put it in good code language and things like that. As you probably heard, we're passing around an amendment this morning to try to clean it up a little bit more. And I want to make sure we don't have conflicts around the code enforcement. That's my only hesitation. The fire service, New Hampshire Fire Service, while a little bit hesitant, this was a big hot topic for us when we talked about it. It passed out of the Board of Fire Control unanimously when it came through. It had support of the fire chiefs. So we're on board with this scenario. I think we just would like to see it done as a code amendment and not potentially create the conflicts. That's all I guess I would have to offer, and happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? I could see you were thinking.
Yeah. So I'm looking at SB 599, and can you walk me through how these issues are already addressed?
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
think that's the part that
It's
is
a little
maybe a little bit
confusing.
unclear, so
Yeah.
that it's not as black and white as this will end up being. But
Okay.
in that Senate Bill 599, it talks about ratification of amendments by the Board of Fire Control.
Yep.
There's a packet that went behind that for informational purposes for you, that would create our SAF FMO 300 rules, which are all the amendments. And in there is the amendment that would say that an existing up to 4 family would be follow the existing chapter in the code instead of the new chapter. So I'm happy to get you that so you can kind of track through it easier. But I think this is very black and white, I think. The code amendment side is not as clear in the Senate Bill 599 or the House Bill 1059. You guys put a little bit of trust on us that the amendment package is the amendment package and we're doing the right thing. I understand that, but I'm happy to give you a little bit more information if you'd like.
May I follow up?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so this one, adopting the State Fire Code, referencing the 2021 editions of the NFPA, does this not offer a belt and suspenders? More of a clarification?
It sort of
I see how it might be
does.
covered, but
Yeah, it sort of does. I guess I'm just concerned that if we introduce conflict, that's when the code applying the code gets a little tricky.
Okay.
And we've worked really hard to try to minimize conflicts in the code, and I guess that's the only thing. I guess belt and suspenders is probably a strong way to do it. From an end user perspective, I think we've been working very hard to try to make it easier to understand the code, which is, I've been doing it for 20 something years, and it still is a lot sometimes. I think when you're the end user and you have to try to find say we're going to the 21, right? The 2021 fire code, and then here's the 2021 amendments, and oh, by the way, here's the local amendments, and oh, by the way, I need to go find stuff in 153 and then 674, and like you just end up all over the place trying to find out what I need to do, and I think we're trying to hone it in and make it easier. That's I guess that's trying to simplify it, and I feel like even though this might be a belt and suspenders, it just has the potential to complicate it because we just got to look all over the place to find things. That's I guess my only comment.
So in the end, we're going to get to the same place. We're just deciding whether we as a legislature do it or we let the Building Code Review Board do it. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's a good summary. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Further questions?
last question.
Also?
Is this, is not having this introducing confusion at the local level where projects might not even be approached because there's not clarity? Where, you know, some towns that are really, really pursuing this, for instance, in Representative Damon's district, they have an eye for this right now. And in another district, there may be some hesitation. So then there's an uneven application. Does this clarify that or make it more confusing? Just want to know, like, how do we make it as easy as possible for every municipality who has access to space
Sure.
to be able to do that, but not run roughshod over you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I know where you're
trying
going.
to make it smooth. And does this smooth the area, or does it make it? I hear you saying it's potential to muddy the waters.
Right.
Is there also a potential of like, hey, there it is, anyone can do it?
It might. I know I've dealt with Claremont. I've dealt with Gorham, and I think we've done it in the past as a variance, which I have the ability to do. The building code side, we don't have the variance option, so it's going to take some education, I think, either way. I don't know. It's I don't know. It's a fair question. I'm not sure.
Further questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ben Frost.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, committee members. I'm Ben Frost. I'm the Deputy Executive Director and Chief Legal Officer at New Hampshire Housing, and I'm here to express New Hampshire Housing's strong support for HB 1065 and urge you to recommend to pass with the amendment, which we also support. New Hampshire has perhaps the oldest housing stock in the nation. We have, it's simply old homes. And the needs of our population is changing. So we have smaller households. So my friend, economist Russ Tebow, who's retired for a number of years, used to talk about little old women rattling around in big old homes. And that's actually a kind of a picturesque image of the situation we're facing. We have an older population, we have older homes, and changing dynamic of our demography. And so there's an opportunity here to recognize that these older homes have capacity that is unmet right now. And one of the chief barriers is the cost of reconfiguring old homes. Now, this bill does not address all of those things, but it does address one really big one, and that is the sprinkler requirement for conversions of existing homes to 3 and 4 units. The legislature already, a number of years ago, addressed the requirement for sprinklers in 1 and 2 family dwellings, and you see this in the existing law that's repeated here in the bill. But this bill would change a significant cost barrier. It would eliminate a significant cost barrier for a lot of homeowners. And as Representative McConkey pointed out also, it also applies to existing commercial structures that an owner wants to convert to residential uses. And that is equally beneficial for other parts of our economy. There are a lot of communities that already allow this through their zoning, and so that they're waiting for it to happen. I used to be, a long time ago, I was the town planner and town administrator in Hollis, which allows for the conversion of older homes. I think the date was sometime in the 1950s. Why they chose that date, I don't know. But older homes could be converted to 3 or 4 units. But again, the sprinkler requirement is a significant barrier for that. I'll note that this augments other things that municipalities can do. So for example, Senator Perkins Coker, you have the Homnibus bill, Senate Bill 538, passed by the Senate and now in the House, that has a tool in it that helps municipalities expands the utility of RSA 79E for tax incentives. So municipalities have tools to encourage that, but still homeowners face these kinds of cost barriers. I understand what Marshall Toomey is saying, and he was the former fire chief in my town, and I greatly appreciate his service. This, however, is, I think, an important, clear statement of policy from the legislature, as you have already addressed with 1 and 2 family dwellings, and would put New Hampshire at the vanguard nationally in this policy. So I strongly encourage you to recommend ought to pass with the amendment 1675. The amendment is the bill as passed by the House deals with the fire code. The amendment deals with potential local amendments to the state building code. So you see the different statutes. 155.3 is the fire code. RSA 674.51 is a municipality's ability to amend the state fire code. And you see the same language carrying over from the bill as passed by the House into the state building code, or the building code amendment portion for municipal law. Be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ben. Questions from the committee? All right, seeing
Thank
none.
you.
Appreciate it. William McKinney.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Bill McKinney, President of the New Hampshire Building Officials Association, and I'm here before you just to express some of our concerns with this bill, and I'll echo Fire Marshal Toomey's concern. So we support the proposal to not require sprinklers for 4-unit dwellings. We do believe that through proper building code enforcement and fire code enforcement, we can still create safe dwellings for up to 4 units without sprinklers. However, we do not, and NHBOA tends not to support building or fire code amendments as their own standalone legislation. We prefer that amendments to building and fire codes go through the proper processes of the Building Code Review Board and the Board of Fire Control, and then presented to the legislature as a complete package. When that happens, those amendments end up at the offices where they belong, where the code officials are going to look and see those amendments. Often when we do standalone legislation like this, code officials are not looking in that legislation for the amendments to codes. It needs to be with the Building Code Review Board and with the Fire Marshal's Office. We prefer those amendments be through the processes, and as I understand it, both boards have submitted the amendments that mirrors this legislation. The more places that we end up putting amendments, whether it's through the Building Code Review Board and Fire Code and now standalone legislation, it starts to get very confusing, and it complicates the administration and enforcement processes, as well as if we need to amend this again in the future, now we're looking in 3 or 4 different places. And we've encountered that before in several times, and in fact, the Building Code Review Board is still trying to clean up some pieces of RSA 674 series that has some conflicts with RSA 155A often. So I caution, standalone legislation that are amendments to the codes are not necessarily the wise way to do it, although it seems like it simplifies it, but often it does not. And I'd be glad to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? All right, seeing none?
Thank you very much for your time.
And our final speaker, Phil Sherman from the Building Code Review Board. Good morning, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'll try and rewind through some of the questions and some of the points made by others. For the record, my name is Philip Sherman, Chair of the Building Code Review Board. First, I want to stress that this whole issue was dealt with through a task force pulled together by Marshall Toomey, several meetings and multiple discussions involving the legislative side, the regulatory side, and most importantly, the user side. And everybody kind of came to a meeting of the minds on this thing. We need to remember that there are 4 pieces in play here. There's a building and a fire element at the state level and a building and a fire element at the municipal level. So reinforcing what Marshall Toomey and Bill McKinney said, Part 3, which addresses only the fire code side at the state level, is really not necessary, and it does kind of gum up the works. As somebody said once, it's easier to put these things into law than it is to change them later. So we don't know what's going to happen downstream, but this is covered well right now by amendments to both the building and the fire code. Neither one of those is going to change without coming back in front of the general court. So there's some protection there over time that may not have been necessary years ago. I'm sorry, that may have been necessary years ago, not so much now. I'd also add along that line, and one of the comments that Mr. McKinney made, in some 40 years of code consulting as a fire protection engineer, I think I can probably count on one hand the number of times I've ever seen an architect or a design engineer open a statute. They go to the codes and they see what the code says, and that's how they design the buildings. Much the same with building officials, although they're more aware of the statutes. But chasing this stuff all over the place just leads to errors and problems. So in summary, Part 3, addressing the state actions, I don't think is necessary. And as Marshall Toomey said, we've been making some efforts to try and get some of this stuff out of statute because it's addressed in amendments. In terms of Part 4 on the municipal side, if you choose to restrict municipal amendments, which would essentially put the requirement back into their codes, the amendment to this bill simply brings the building code into that, and it was language that I helped work with Representative Damon to kind of get it in the same place as the 1 and 2 family prohibition. That currently sits in 674-51. With any luck, by this time next year, there will be some suggestions that we pull some of that into 155A, where we can sort it out a little better. So that's my comments. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So, for clarity, I guess you want to make sure I'm understanding your testimony. You don't feel we need section 1. If we were to keep section,
Part 3, I guess it is, right?
yeah, part 3, I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Section 1, part 3, but part 4 and the amendment wouldn't cause any conflict, you don't feel, with the building code board, the way that you're approaching it?
We don't have the ability as the Building Code Review Board, or I guess as the State Fire Marshal, to write an amendment that prohibits the municipalities from doing something. So if you want to do that, it's got to be in statute. And the amendment that Representative Damon introduced this morning just cleans that up to cover both the building and the fire code side.
All right, thank you, I just wanted to make sure I understood. Questions from the committee?
Yeah, I just want to.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
I just want to clarify that. So the amendment we have, which others before you have been supportive of, retains section 1, which would be your section 3, inserts after section 1 the language in 674, and then moves the effective date to section 3. So are you supportive of the amendment, but need this further amendment to remove section 3? Is that what you're requesting? Sorry, it's not section 3, Roman numeral 3.
Okay, if I look at the base bill,
Yeah.
line 3, which starts with Roman numeral 3.
Yep.
Are we all in the same place? I
Yep.
think I'm in the right place. That's the one that's superfluous, I think. We
Line
don't
3
really
through
need
line
it.
8, you'd recommend removing.
I don't want to speak for the fire side, but yeah,
Okay.
as a general principle, we're trying to not have codes written into statutes. Then on line 9, which starts with Roman numeral 5, we're still amending RSA 153, so that applies to the fire code.
Right.
I'll be silent on that. Representative Damon's amendment this morning to 67451 essentially puts the same intent into the building code side,
Okay.
which I would support if you choose to prohibit municipal actions on this.
Got
That
it.
answer your question?
It did answer my question, and maybe others will speak to this as well.
Well, he's the last
One
one
never
speaking.
knows. Oh, okay. All
Further
right.
questions?
Thank you.
All right. Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative McGuire, did you want to testify? Good morning, welcome to Senate EDN.
Good morning, Senator, Mr. Chair, Committee. I'm Carol McGuire, representing Merrimack District 27, and I hadn't seen this bill before, so I'm new to it. I would agree with what Mr. Sherman recommended, that we not specifically put the building code and fire code amendments into statute because they're already in statute. However, it's our job, not theirs, to control the powers of the towns, and if we want to ensure that the towns do not put this restriction in place, we have to make that rule. So I would agree with what Mr. Sherman said about what parts are necessary. Because this would otherwise be a legitimate amendment to the building code. It's more stringent than the basic code or the fire code. And so it would be within the authority of the town unless we tell them otherwise.
All right, thank you. Questions from the committee?
Thank you, Carol.
Seeing none, thank you. Did you want to come back? All right, I'll give you one quick one. We're going to move on to our next bill, but we'll give you a chance to rebut.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to come back up. And in light of the discussion, it does seem that an amendment that would remove from the original bill, lines 3 through 8, the Roman numeral 3 part.
No, in the
Nope,
original bill.
in the original bill.
Yep.
Right, so lines 3 through 8, which is the part that cites the change in the fire sprinkler being optional for 4 or less units. If that's removed, but retain Roman numeral 4 and add the proposed amendment, then my understanding would be that municipalities cannot put a stricter requirement back in place. And we would consider that a reasonable compromise.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the committee? No. All right, seeing none. Anybody else? All right, we're going to close the hearing on House Bill 1065. Rep. Aaron is here. All right, we'll open the hearing on House Bill 1526. Good morning. Welcome to
Good
the
morning.
EDNA.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Representative Judy Aaron. I represent Sullivan County District 4, which is the towns of Ackworth, Goshen, Langdon, Leominster, and Washington. So good morning, members of the Senate Executive Departments and Administration Committee. I'm introducing this bill, HB 1526, relative to a conditional veterinary license for veterinarians educated in other countries. I just wanted to let you know I'm also working on an amendment to this bill, which replaces the entire bill with language which accomplishes the same thing, but better comports with how OPLC now deals with conditional licensure, and includes licensed veterinarian supervision and a time limit for the conditional licensure. The language is being worked on at the moment. I do have a draft copy, which I can pass along to the chair. HB 1526 would authorize the Board of Veterinary Medicine to issue a conditional license to a foreign educated veterinarian currently in the process of obtaining an educational commission for foreign veterinary graduates, the ECFVG certificate, who has completed all the steps of the ECFVG except the clinical proficiency examination, the CPE. If the veterinarian has proof of legal immigration status in the United States, applied and is waiting to take the CPE, has taken the CPE and is awaiting results, or passed the CPE and has applied for the New Hampshire exam, and employment and supervision by a New Hampshire licensed veterinarian. The veterinarian workforce shortage experienced across the country is often highlighted in New Hampshire, and last June, WMUR News 9 reported that an estimated 620 licensed veterinarians in the state are seeing increased demand for services, burnout after the pandemic, and turnover at a rate twice that of medical physicians. Veterinarians try their best to accommodate owners' needs, but appointments are booking months in advance for wellness checkups, and they can barely keep up with emergency calls. As far as licensure fees goes, if a new license type is developed, I would imagine that it would adhere to the current $155 licensing fee specified in Administrative Rule PLC 1002, and any additional licenses would increase revenue to the OPLC fund. In the fiscal note, the OPLC did state that the administrative cost for this could be absorbed into their budget. This bill will help to alleviate the veterinarian staffing shortage problem with the goal of enhancing timely access to professional veterinary medicine. As chairman of the Environment and Agriculture Committee in the House, I know that proper care and humane treatment of dogs and cats includes regular veterinarian care. We currently have a crisis going on with access to that care. I would ask that you call Dr. Claire Lindo to give her testimony next, as she was the constituent who prompted the filing of this bill. She can give you more details on the problems she's currently encountering at her veterinarian clinic and how this bill will help her and other vet clinics in New Hampshire deal with their staffing shortages. Elizabeth Eaton from OPLC can explain a little bit more about what we're working on with this amendment that I've presented to the chair. So thank you, and I appreciate your time on this. I do have copies of my testimony for the clerk.
Thank you, Representative. So the language that you just handed us is something that you're working?
Yes, I have an amendment sent over to Ben Greenslade in OLS that he's going to replace that language with what's in the bill now. It will still have the same date of the date the bill takes in effect. But the language more clarifies the process for the non-AVMA accredited students.
Okay, I did receive an email from OPLC with some minor tweaks to language. I don't know if you've seen.
Yeah, I gave him a draft yesterday.
Okay.
And it was the first version of this. And I did let him know that we were still working on it. So a new amendment will be forthcoming.
Okay.
With this draft language that I've presented to you.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing
Okay,
none?
thank you. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Always try to get the reps in first. Rep Gould, you put a question mark. Do you want to speak? Okay, just want to make sure.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members of the committee. Just briefly, the reason for my question mark, I'm not sure it was needed, but Representative Aaron assured me it would be helpful. So as a farmer, and especially with large farm animals, the shortage of veterinarians in our state is serious. And the New Hampshire Farm Federation, I'm not going to get the name right, but anyway, there are professional farm organizations that urged us to pass this bill. It's really important and needed. I've seen some of the language for the changes and spoken to our chair and the committee having passed this bill on. We all support the changes that are being discussed, so.
All right, thank
That's
you.
it. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Rep McGuire, is she still here? I don't see her. Okay, she left. Okay, just check and see if she wants to testify. She did check, she did. She's gone, all right. Dr. Lindo. Good morning. Welcome to EDNA.
Good morning, and thank you all. So my name is Dr. Claire Lindo. I'm a 1998 graduate of Cornell University, so AVMA accredited college. Been practicing in New Hampshire since '98. Have owned my own practice since 2004. We've seen a huge decrease in the number of veterinarians that are practicing in my area. The hospital to the north of us was a 4.5 to 5 doctor practice, is down to 1.5 doctors. The hospital to the east of us, granted technically across the river in Vermont, was a 3.5 doctor practice, is down to 1 doctor, and closed some days here and there. Practice a little farther north from there, or east from there, west from there, was a 2-doctor practice and has been taken over by another small animal hospital, and they're sharing their veterinarians through their 2 hospitals, so it's down 2 veterinarians. South of us, I think they're doing okay, but in general, we've lost a large number of veterinarians in our area, and there isn't looking to be any help for that, any respite for that anytime soon. We've been looking for veterinary help for a long time. We had an associate for a bit of time. She left because she was looking for fewer hours, no emergencies, no urgencies, things that are unfortunately part of rural veterinary practice. We don't have emergency hospitals close to us. They're a little ways away. We have some additional veterinarians who are coming to help us at the moment, which is wonderful, but it's not enough. We could employ far more than we have coming. And the problem is that the graduation rate of U.S. veterinary colleges, while it is expected to increase because there are 10 new proposed veterinary colleges going online, so it is a nationwide issue where there are not enough veterinarians, and there are attempts to try to make that happen. In general, there has been approximately 20% unmet need for hospitals all across the country, 5 jobs for every 4 applicants that are out there. Those 10 projected hospitals are not going to do enough to fix that need, when one of the new statistics that was given to me by a IDEX consultant and someone who helps with the ECFEG program, is that new veterinary graduates out of vet school have about a 5-year lifespan before they quit and go into something else. And so 5 years of 10 from 10 new schools is not going to be enough. And so we're burning out. And in doing that, even when we're not burning out, there are not enough of us to supply the needs of our clients and our patients. And so we're having huge wait times. We are booking out 3 to 4 months for routine appointments when we used to be able to get people within 2 weeks into the hospital. And that's for lots of hospitals around because there are not enough people. So your constituents, our clients are not being served by this, our patients are not being served by this, and we need to do something to try to make that better. There is a pool of additional veterinarians, and that would be foreign trained veterinarians who have graduated from non-AVMA accredited vet schools. The ones who have graduated from veterinary accredited foreign veterinary schools are able to jump into the pool right away. But those graduates from non-AVMA accredited vet schools are not. They have a couple of programs that they can go through to become accredited. And there's a reason for their schools not being accredited, and not making any complaints about that. There needs to be that process. But there is a period of time where they are in between they're waiting on the last step called the CPE, the clinical practical exam, or clinical proficiency exam. And there is a 1+ year wait time for that. And there is a 75% failure rate for first-time applicants for that 7-part test, which means that we're not graduating many of those veterinarians, not adding them to our labor pool. And so this bill would allow us to have those veterinarians who have reached a stage where all they have left to do is take that clinical proficiency exam. They've passed all of the other components to be mentored in animal hospitals with a veterinary mentor to help them learn the skills that they need so they can practice that CPE at a much better than a 75% failure rate or a 25% pass rate. And in the meantime, also be able to do a limited number of professional duties to help alleviate some of that need for our clients and our patients. There is in the bill a requirement or a stipulation that there can only be a maximum of us concurrently of having this conditional license so that it does give an incentive for licensed veterinarians who are overseeing said veterinarians to indeed mentor them appropriately so that they can learn the skills and pass that test instead of keeping them in limbo indefinitely. And I like that provision. And so, but it would allow us to have more people practicing to help with those things that our patients and our clients need.
Thank you. Senator Perkins-Coker with a question.
I have 2 questions. One is, and you spoke to this, on line 9 of the bill, it says, and providing, which I think it should probably say, and provided such person is employed by and practices the profession under the supervision of a duly licensed veterinarian practicing in the state. I like everything you said and I agree with it substantively. Do you think this could read or? Would there ever be a difference between a person in the situation you're talking about that received this conditional license being employed and being under the direct supervision? Would those situations ever arise separately? I'm just trying to accomplish the goals of the bill, which is that.
Yes, there are corporate-owned veterinary practices these days, and unlike the veterinary oath that I took to work to the best of my patients' and clients' needs and ethically, those corporations, their goal is money, and so I do think that there would be a place where corporations would exploit loopholes if they could.
Okay, and yeah, just a follow-up if I may, Chair. I didn't hear you specifically speak, and maybe it was wrapped up in that accreditation piece, but on line 3 it says foreign educated veterinarian. Is that, do we just want to be able to issue conditional licenses as we wait for folks to take the CPE, or is the CPE wrapped up in all of our sort of domestic veterinary graduation programs?
The CPE is an alternative to a supervised 4th year of clinical rotations that all AVA accredited veterinarians pass through during their process.
Got it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Senator Altshuler.
Thank you. I have two questions. Is the fourth year practical optional?
There is a different program called a PAVE program.
Okay.
And so those foreign trained veterinarians can go through that. There just aren't many seats at those AVMA colleges for PAVE program applicants.
So this would mirror that program, but within the state? No.
No.
What would be the difference between going through a clinical, the PAVE program and this?
So this is not replacing anything about PAVE or ECFEG. What it's doing is allowing, so let me take a step. People who go through the PAVE program, once they complete their clinical rotation, they have already passed their national licensing exam. They can apply for a license directly. They don't really have a need for a conditional license unless there's a gap between when they pass everything, including their New Hampshire jurisprudence exam, and actually get their own license. Whereas the people in the ECFEG program, because there is a huge delay for the CPE to be able to take that test and the huge failure rate, there is a huge delay for the people in the ECFEG program, which in order to get their license. So this is trying to help bring those appropriately qualified individuals, and that would be up to the supervising veterinarian to make sure that they only allow those veterinarians to do what they deem they are competent to do, but allow them to get into the workforce a little easier, but also to have mentoring so that they have a better chance of passing that CPE on the first time, because it's a $14,000 test. If you miss any bit of it, you have to retake it, and I think it's 1,400 and change per section to retake, but there is over a year wait time each time you have to apply to take it. There are only a little over 200 seats per year in the US for anyone applying for this, and there's a huge backlog.
One more question?
Follow? Yeah.
So have you read this amendment?
I have, and
Okay.
I think it's wonderful.
Okay, great, because my question kind of comes around this amendment. So if someone were to be granted one of these provisional licenses as an on-ramp into the industry,
Yeah.
According to this in the amendment, the conditional license has to practice under the direct supervision of a New Hampshire licensed veterinarian like yourself. So you could take on somebody with a provisional license.
Yes.
What I'm not quite understanding is the intention for the New Hampshire licensed veterinarian, do you have to sponsor someone for a provisional license, or do they come to you having attained that provisional license outside of working with you? And is that license it's up to 2 years, is it location specific or is it person specific? Like, if I wanted to get one of these licenses, right? Do I get the license and then I go work for you? And after a year, I get a better offer. Does my license get to move around with me, or is my license tied to one specific practice for those 2 years? Because it looks like you could be under this provisional license for 4 years. So is it person specific or location specific?
That's a good question, and I don't think I thought that far, and I would leave that for the legal counsel.
Okay.
Personally, I would be fine if it goes with the person, that they can work for someone who is willing to be their supervising veterinarian. I guess there just has to be something so that we know that they have a supervising veterinarian.
So it would be up to OPLC to create, or for the Board of Veterinary to create a criteria for a supervising vet,
Those are our
right?
next two speakers, the Board of Vets and the OPLC, so we'll let them answer that.
Okay. Sorry, I'm passing stuff on to you guys.
Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you all.
Elizabeth Eaton from the Board of Veterinary Medicine. Oh, actually, before we do, I'm sorry, Representative McGuire, did you want to speak? You're good? I'm good. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Elizabeth, the floor is yours. Good morning and welcome to EDNA.
Good morning, Elizabeth Eaton, Counsel to the Board of Veterinary Medicine. I'm mostly here to answer questions regarding the board, establishing criteria, writing rules, and any licensure-related questions as far as the board goes. Operations questions I would defer to OPLC General Counsel. I do want to make one note about the supervision piece. The Board of Veterinary Medicine has a definition for direct supervision in that the licensed New Hampshire veterinarian has to be within the facility and available for consultation face-to-face or written, but they have to be there when the conditional license holder is practicing, whether it's in an animal hospital or on someone's farm.
Further questions? I think you're going to get off really easy.
Right. I'm sorry, could you answer any of those questions that I had posed earlier? Is that, so thank you. I hear that a provisional licensee could not go out and do a house call with, a horse or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have to be in the presence of their direct supervisor. But is that direct supervisor tied to their provisional license, or is that license, can you use it in other places around the state?
Yeah, so it's left pretty general in the statute so that the Board of Veterinary Medicine can write the rules for that process, and they would need to discuss among themselves and determine what is best for New Hampshire citizens and their pets and animals.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So actually, I'm looking in the bill. Did we give rulemaking authority to the board to do this?
So under the Rulemaking Authority statute in the Veterinary Medicine Practice Act, they have rulemaking over to establish criteria for all licenses.
So that's covered elsewhere and it doesn't need to be mentioned.
It is elsewhere.
Okay.
I did make sure that it was there so that we didn't have to add it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Welcome.
Dr. Winnie Krogman? Krogman, all right, sorry. Again, from the Board of Veterinary Medicine. Can you turn your mic on, please? Thank you. Just introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Dr. Winnie Krogman. I am working on my 5th year as a member of the Board of Veterinary Medicine. I'm also a practicing veterinarian within the state of New Hampshire. And I have a lot of actually experience with foreign veterinarians through an NGO that I work for. So perspective-wise, I think you hit the key things as far as that direct supervision. So I did pull up the definition that's in our rules. And it means supervision where the supervising veterinarian is on the premises of the animal treatment facility and is available or on an immediate basis and has given written or oral instructions for treatment of the animal patients involved. So that is, I think, a key piece of this. And I mean, to the point of the veterinary shortage, it's well known. Obviously, as within other industries, COVID exacerbated an already underlying problem. And then solutions are hard to come by, and this is, I think, at least an attempt to make a solution for a pretty dramatic problem. So I don't know if you have any questions.
All right, further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Right, thank you.
And our final speaker, Doug Osterhout from OPLC. We're gonna let you back clean up.
Good morning, Douglas Osterhout, OPLC General Counsel. I hadn't had the opportunity to see the language until this morning. The office doesn't take a position on the bill, and there's a policy matter. The only thing that kind of jumped out at me is in the last paragraph. It requires 2 applications for initial licensure.
And Doug, are you referring to
the new language?
The amended.
Yeah, which I do not have in front of me, unfortunately. I don't think we need to do it that way. I think we could do an initial license and then give the board the authority to do 1 renewal and then just cap it at 1 renewal. The only big difference that jumps out is you'd have a different license number. So it might be easier to track if we keep one license number tied to one individual. But that's just a process thing. As a policy matter, we don't take a position.
So when Representative Aaron brings the language to me, what I'll do is work with you on it, if you're okay with that, and we'll tweak those little tweaks that need to be done. I also did receive your email with your suggested edits, just the minor grammar changes, it looks like mostly.
Yeah, looks like that's out the window, though.
Okay. All right. Questions from the committee? All right, seeing none. Thank you, appreciate it. Anybody else that would like to testify on House Bill 1526? Seeing none, we will close the hearing. Edie, can you give these to Kevin, please? Thank you. Yeah, it's getting warm in here. All right, we will open the hearing on 1688, and is Rep. Damon here still? Oops, I'm sorry, wrong one. Rep. Corman, my bad. I got them in a different order on my sheet, that's weird, on the back. Go ahead, Representative, when you're ready.
All right, now for something completely different. Good morning, Senators. I am Tom Corman. I represent the Fightin' 15th, Grafton 15, which is Ward 3 of the City of Lebanon. I'm here to introduce HB 1688, which is about AI and the state agencies. Before I go into the bill, I want to talk about why I introduced this bill, and that's about my background. I'm an emeritus professor of computer science from Dartmouth. I was on the faculty there for 29 and a half years. I retired off cycle. I taught the introductory computer science course 25 times. Unfortunately, Senator Perkins Cuoco was never in my course. Would have loved to have had her in there. I also chaired the computer science department for 6 years, from 2009 to 2015. I have been in computer science since 1974. You don't need a computer to do the math and realize that's 50 years that I've been in computer science. I have an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering and computer science from Princeton and master's and PhDs in the same from MIT. I am best known as the lead author of a textbook called Introduction to Algorithms, which has been translated into, I think, 16 languages, and we're in the 4th edition. It's sold over 1 million copies worldwide. All that said, my research was not in artificial intelligence. I have to make that disclaimer. But I've kept up with developments in artificial intelligence over the years, in large part because as chair of the computer science department, I needed to keep a broad view of the entire field and understand what was going on throughout computer science. What I can tell you is that AI has made astounding progress in the last few years. When I really started tracking it in the 1980s when I was in grad school, AI seemed dead in the water. The big thing then was expert systems, which you program all the knowledge into the system. And they tend to be about really arcane things because how else are you going to get all the knowledge in there? So the example I remember was there was a system on how to repair locomotives. Doesn't get much more arcane than that. But what's happened now is with technologies such as deep neural nets and large language models, the progress has been exponential. And I'm a quantitative guy. I know what exponential really means. And progress really has been exponential. But there's a big concern about bias in AI systems. And that's due in large part to the bias in the data that you train the systems on. So I am concerned about AI impinging on our rights, especially in the face of biased algorithms. And also just AI makes mistakes. And I can give you a great example that I just saw the other day. In my feed on X, formerly known as Twitter, I see an ad for a service that you send it some headshots of you, and it will produce some really good-looking headshots with AI. And it gives an example. You know, somebody sent in like 3 or 4 photos, and then it sends back some headshots. One of the headshots it sends back, it's a man, and he's wearing a suit jacket, and it has a pocket on the left and a pocket on the right with pocket squares in both. That doesn't exist. You don't see pockets on the right. So AI will make even stupid mistakes like that. So I am concerned about what AI could do in the face of the errors it makes. So I drafted this bill to protect the rights of granite staters from AI systems. I modeled it on legislation that I've seen in Connecticut and in the EU, but I tailored it to New Hampshire. So the bill is really about protecting the rights of granite staters from AI systems used by state agencies and only state agencies. It places no restrictions on anyone or anything else, including private enterprise. The co-sponsors represent really a broad spectrum of political thought. If you look at who the co-sponsors are, there's some people who have very different opinions from mine on many issues, but we all want to protect everyone's rights. The bill exempts systems used by state-funded institutions of higher learning. I have friends at UNH. I don't want to tie their hands. And also, it exempts systems that are installed in common and personal use. For example, if you're using facial recognition to unlock your smartphone, that's exempted. And this bill is part of a set of 3 House bills on AI. HB 1432, which establishes criminal and civil penalties for using deep fakes to damage someone, and also HB 1596, which prohibits misuse of AI in elections. These bills were all independently developed. I'm a co-sponsor on 1596. They were all independently developed, but we realized that they all are about AI and deep fakes. So we actually coordinated the bills. We got the chairs and ranking members and sponsors together in one room and coordinated the definitions in the bills so that they all have the same definitions. So the bills define AI, generative AI, and deep fakes. And the one thing I implore of you is whatever you do, please don't change the definitions. If you amend the bill, please leave the definitions intact because they match exactly word for word the definitions in the other bills. So what does the bill do? First of all, it has prohibited uses of AI, and these are drawn from the Connecticut and EU bills. One is classifying people based on their behavior, socioeconomic status, or personal characteristics, resulting in unlawful discrimination. It also prohibits real-time and remote biometric identification for public surveillance, such as facial recognition, except by law enforcement with a warrant. And that was actually a suggestion by Chair McGuire from the House eDNA committee that I was very happy to take. And then also it prohibits deep fakes when used for any deceptive or malicious purpose. I wouldn't expect our state agencies to do that, but in the words of my 8th grade math teacher, it's not that I don't trust you, it's just that I want to be sure. It also has permitted uses, but with some restrictions. So if an AI system produces a recommendation or decision that once executed cannot be undone, then you have to have an appropriate human in the loop. And the example I love to give is imagine a hostage situation and the state police send in a robot. The robot does not decide what to do. Because if the robot decides to shoot someone and it makes a mistake, you cannot unshoot them. Other things that are permitted but with restrictions when rights and freedoms of an individual are determined, biometric identification to verify identity, management and operation of critical infrastructure, state and law enforcement, local law enforcement actions, and interpreting and applying laws including sentencing. AI has proven elsewhere to be biased when recommending sentences, so we should not be using AI for sentencing. If there is material produced by generative AI without a human in the loop, then it must be disclosed as generated by AI. And also, whenever a human is interacting with AI, whether directly or indirectly, they must be told that they are. So those are the restrictions. There's also a section in the bill on compliance. Within 9 months of the effective date of the bill, All state agencies have to report compliance with the Department of Information Technology. They need to review AI in their systems to verify compliance with the statute and with the Department of Information Technology Code of Ethics for AI Systems. And they have to remove any AI not in compliance and modify all procedures relative to AI as needed to be in compliance. And of course, any new AI systems would need to comply. And then 1 year after the effective date, the Department of IT would produce a report summarizing what the state agencies have done with AI. All right, so that's a quick overview of the bill. One question that you might be wondering is, why a bill? Why not rules? Why not do this in rulemaking? And I have some good answers. For one thing, the only rules that we have right now are the Department of Information Technology Code of Ethics. And this bill goes beyond that. It incorporates it, but it goes beyond that. But more fundamentally, this bill is about rights. It is about the rights of Granite Staters. And rights should be enshrined in statute, not just in administrative rules. Because administrative rules can change quickly or when a new administration comes in. And this should be solid. And the final thing I would say about rules is that because there are various agencies, it seems unlikely that each agency would do its own rulemaking about AI. In this way, the bill covers all the state agencies. And with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony, Representative. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Altshuler?
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you for bringing this forward. And this committee has done incredibly deep dives into OPLC, and I thought that was some of the weediest stuff. You just topped it. You just topped it. I want to go back to page 2, section 1.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I guess, do you have any other examples? Because I'm struggling to follow through on the hostage example.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I've spoken with Representative Manos about this bill a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And an example she brings up is if somebody is, I'm trying to remember the exact scenario, somebody is trying to get approval from the state for something, and an AI disapproves it, and there's a time limit on them getting it, then that could be a problem.
Okay. Is there, may I follow up? I'm sure there was thought given to it. So had you given thought to, I know that rather than do it in rules, like you said, that there should be statute that generally applies to all departments. Two of the departments that give me heartburn when it comes to AI would be using this for screening purposes under, for instance, third-party contracts like with DCYF, right? I don't know how, and maybe it's a lack of imagination on my part, how a screening process for reporting suspected child abuse or neglect could possibly be molded into an AI program. But given that we have such challenges in recruitment and retention, that would be a really attractive place to put it, because then you could possibly put more bodies into following up afterwards. But I think that would be incredibly dangerous, particularly given the biases. So was there any you gave specific language in line 11 of interpreting and applying laws of the state, including sentencing. But on the front end, for, reviewing possible child abuse
Right.
cases, or even reviewing on the really front end, arrest, the window between arrest and prosecution. If AI were to get into that, we're leaving out a lot of human discretion and possibly introducing an enormous amount of bias.
Yes, and I agree, and that's why I feel like we need humans in the loop. And of course, humans come with their own biases.
Right.
But I don't think it's a good idea to just leave decisions to AI when they affect people's lives.
That's it?
Spot, would you be amenable to including a F that would encompass child protection?
Depending on how it was worded, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, thank you for your
All right,
testimony.
thank you.
Rep. McGuire. Rep. Carol McGuire, I don't want to have any confusion. Although I don't see Dan here, so I think we're safe.
The other Representative McGuire is a co-sponsor, and he's in full support of the bill. And he's also a computer scientist. Carol McGuire, representing Merrimack 27, that is Allenstown, Dunbarton, Epsom, and Hooksett. And we worked on House Bill 1688 in the House eDNA Committee, streamlined it a little, made absolutely sure that the definitions were the same as in other bills, and also that it only applies to state agencies. It has nothing that in any way restricts individuals in their use of AI. It only restricts state agencies. So the parts that we worked on, other than the definitions, were on clarifying the prohibitions. We added the point about the warrant because we have been told so many times that it's easy enough to get a warrant in case of a missing child or a fugitive or whatever, that we felt we didn't want to allow facial recognition in public spaces without a warrant. Facial recognition in non-public spaces we're fine with. For example, the prison should probably be using AI to identify its visitors and some of their actions, so we're good with that. And there are many places where AI might be helpful to agencies. I'm not very familiar with DCYF, but that might be one. I know travel and tourism frequently gets requests from people, if I want to see Mount Washington, what are the other things I should see in the area? And they should be able to generate lists of recommendations, so that's easy. And on compliance, we've worked this out with the director of DOIT, and he agrees it should not be extremely burdensome. They already have a very nice code of ethics on the use of AI. It's on their website. We've read it, and it makes perfect sense to us. If it needs updates, that's the place to do it because it's they can update it anytime they feel it's necessary. And since it only applies to state agencies, it doesn't necessarily need to go through rulemaking because one agency really shouldn't be imposing requirements on others except when authorized by statute. And there is a one-time report, which again, DOIT thought would be a reasonable way to give us a survey of what's going on. And they didn't think it would cost very much at all. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Any questions, Senator Altshuler?
So in the discussions, because I know with the three companion bills that you all dove deep and did a lot of work on this. What were the discussions if there were around applying this statute to agencies contracted by the state to do work for the state? So those third-party contracts.
I don't know what any of the other, all the other AI bills went to different committees. The chairs met once with the speaker and Representative Corman to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. And so that's when we synchronized on one definition, or well, one set of definitions. We didn't in ED&A explicitly talk about contracts, but if they're contracting with to buy a computer system, it's one of theirs and they have to confirm that they are compliant with this. We didn't go into any great detail on it.
Further questions? All right.
But, you know, it's seriously, you know, if you look on page 2, line 21, you know, review the use of AI to comply with the, with this statute and procedures and systems developed by the agency would be applicable. But that's a good point that we ought to talk to, you know, contracted services as well. Because if we forbid Department of Safety from using facial recognition in public spaces, we should prohibit their contract with, I don't know, somebody or another from doing the same thing. It's a good point.
Further questions? Senator Carson.
I just have a quick question. Good morning, Representative. I'm looking on the first page, line 24, prohibition. The use of AA by state agencies is prohibited. And I see where it talks about classifying persons based on behavior, socioeconomic status, or personal characteristics resulting in unlawful discrimination. We do have individuals that have restraining orders against them at various departments across the state. And we're basically saying they can't use AI to identify those individuals.
No, it says that you can't use AI to sort people and then do unlawful discrimination. Not allowing somebody with a restraining order to do something that is forbidden by the restraining order is not unlawful discrimination.
Okay, may I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
So, and I'll just use this as an example, but I know it does not apply to universities. But we know that sometimes people will gather to protest outside of a state office. So is that where the prohibition will kick in? That they cannot use AI to classify persons based on their behavior?
Actually, they can't use biometric identification systems in public spaces. So if they're protesting on the State House lawn, it's forbidden. If they march into your office and start protesting there, that's not necessary. That's still a public space.
Mm-hmm.
It would be prohibited by Roman II, not Roman I. You can't use biometric surveillance to identify people in public spaces, or the state can't.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, thanks for your testimony. Anybody else that would like to testify on House Bill 1688? Seeing none, we will close the hearing. I'll take a motion to go into exec.
For this one, because, Mr. Chairman, I have concerns. We have
Yeah, I don't know. I think we have some others. I think we have some others. This one may need to hold for a little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are in an exec session. I know Senator Perkins Polka has to leave approximately in 25 minutes, so we're going to try and get through a few of these bills. Yeah. Senator General, can you send that down to Kevin just so I don't get it mixed in my stack of papers? Thank you.
Go, Kevin.
Senator Perkins Polka, is there certain bills that you would like to prioritize? Because I'm going to try and push a lot of these FNs through today.
I have no.
I certainly want to be respectful that you need to leave.
I appreciate that. Let's start with FNs. There are no FNs that I particularly need you to hold. So
Okay.
There are a few others, and I will
All
write
right.
those down.
So we'll go, I guess we'll start right on the list. 644. I haven't had the opportunity to talk with any of you about this, and I guess if you're ready to do this, we can. If you want to hold it, we can. I know I had notes that, well, Senator Parson, you had some concerns about it, and I think many of you did, as I recall. But let's pull it out, and then if we don't want to work
Oh,
out
yeah.
today.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion of, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion of interim study on House Bill 644.
Do we have a second? Senator Altshuler, was that you?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second discussion.
Mr. Chairman, we keep getting bills like this. For some reason, the barbers, cosmetologists, estheticians just seems to be the focus, time and time again, to de-license. Mr. Chairman, I do believe that barbers and cosmetologists should be licensed. Estheticians, maybe not so much. But what I think needs to happen is we need to look at these folks and make decisions about actually who is going to continue to be licensed, and then we can certify and have a certification for everyone else. Usually they have an industry where they go to school and they have tests they have to pass, and they'll get some sort of certification, and perhaps to create standards for that certification. These are all individuals that work with the human body in one form or another, whether they're barbers are cutting hair and cutting beards. Oftentimes they're treating staph infections that are on individual skin. You also have cosmetologists. We all know the things that they do as well, estheticians. I just think that we need to hold these folks to a higher standard, and that standard is with their licensing or certification. These are not things that anybody can just say, oh, I'm going to be a barber today and just start cutting people's hair. Hair does grow back, but we all have bad hair days, and we know what that's like, and I'd hate to have, well, okay. That perhaps what we need to do is really take a look at these industries and say, okay, these should be licensed and based on a set of criteria, and these should be certified.
Further discussion? Senator Altshuler.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to add that this is a really interesting juxtaposition to one of the bills that we were just talking about, House Bill 1526, where there are industries who are looking at creating on-ramps into a professional space, which, we have done with nursing, we're trying to do now with veterinarians, and, creating spaces for people to get into an industry, and rather than getting rid of the safety regulations that are within, that's why we have licenses in the first place, is for health and safety, particularly with these industries. It would probably be a better use of time rather than to try to get rid of the license, but to provide an on-ramp that gets you toward the license in a quicker or cheaper way. So I appreciate where some of the sponsors' heads were in sponsoring this, but the approach, maybe the 1526 could offer some inspiration for approach.
Further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of interim study? Say
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have consent?
Move consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any, Senator Altshuler, would you like to take this one?
Sure.
All right.
Okay, this one is-
Is there a motion to reconsider House Bill 1355, the first one we did this morning?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion about to pass?
Move on to pass.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who took this out originally?
I did.
Senator Gentile, would you like to take it up again? All right, thank you. All right, next we'll do House Bill 1188.
Yeah.
I'm doing the FNs right down through.
That's good.
We have more to do, but I want to get the FNs out of the way first. That's my goal. That's our first deadline. Someplace I have the bill in here.
I'll move on to pass, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to ought to pass and a second. Discussion.
Good bill, good testimony.
Well done.
Yeah, I think essentially what this bill does is it moves the component of deciding what is, sufficient aptitude in English language from the legislature to the Board of Nursing. And I think it's appropriately placed there because they have talent within the members of the board that work in that field, and I think they would know what is required better than we in the legislature. So I will be supporting the ought to pass. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope, I move consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll take this one out. 1188, I'll take that out. All right?
1274?
1274, yes.
Mr. Chairman, do we have to do this one today?
We do not have to, but we have to get it done by next week.
Okay, can we hold off on this one, please? And
We
I'll
can.
explain why.
All right? I do have a question mark on it, so I will hold
Okay.
on. I want to hold 1272 till next week. 1323. Yeah, I'm sorry, we have 1292. Oh, no, 1292 I was holding, I'm sorry.
Okay,
1323.
I'll move on to pass.
Second?
I'm sorry,
Just get there,
1322.
I think there's an
Wait.
amendment to this one. There is, there's an amendment to this,
Okay.
Kevin. There
Oh,
was a,
23. Thank
there's
you.
a technical error in the bill,
Yes.
and I had an amendment drawn up. I spoke to OLS yesterday. They could have fixed it in enrolled bills, but I left it up to them, and they opted this morning to draft an amendment. So
Okay.
I move amendment 1709S, which simply renumbers 5C to 5B, because there is no 5B currently.
Okay, I move amendment 1709S.
I think I just-
Second.
Oh, you did,
Richard
okay.
can second it. How's that?
I will second it. I'm just busy
All right.
pulling out all these
That's
bills.
okay. Discussion on the amendment.
Thank you.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Do we have a motion to vote EPA?
Second.
All right, moved by Senator Perkins Booker, seconded by Senator Carson. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Move consent?
Second.
All in favor of consent?
Aye.
Aye.
Any volunteers to take this one on?
I will.
Senator Carson. All right, I'm just cross-referencing between two lists here, that's why I have the hesitation sometimes. 1355 is done, we did it this morning. Yep, okay. 1385 has not been heard, so we can't do that one yet.
No, we can't. We're good, but we're not that
1394 we can't do yet, hasn't been heard. 1410.
I think we should hold that
You
one,
wanna
Mr.
hold that
Chair.
one?
Yeah,
Okay,
we need
I
to
have
hold that one.
I have a hold note on that one.
There is an amendment that's needed there. Is someone
Mhm.
working on that?
Yep.
Okay, great.
1451.
Yeah, I think I can do that.
I'll just get to that. Bear with me 1 second.
This is
Is there a motion on this?
Mr. Chair, I'll move on to pass.
Second?
I think this is a good bill, Mr. Chairman, and as usual, Representative McGuire does a great job, and she chaired the committee, and she sent us a good bill.
And I'll just add, I think this is a great bill, and it'll end, as noted in the hearing, the practice of spiking, and I think just smooth out some overtime pay, so I think it's a great bill.
Further discussion? You know, I was unsure of this bill myself and what direction to go with it, because I do know there is federal precedent on not using overtime as part of as far as the base benefits. But I guess we can have a discussion on this in finance when it goes there, because I'm certain it will. There is a pretty good price tag with it as well. So we will, I guess we'll have a discussion there, assuming it passes the vote here.
Okay. I think it's good policy, so.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move consent.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any volunteers to take this one out?
I will.
Senator Carson.
That's one we heard today.
I think there's an amendment to this.
Yes.
Oh, that's the one we did today. I'm sorry. Yep.
Oh, what about 1292, relative to coverage of children under the state retirement insurance plan? Do we have that one? Are we ready for this one?
Sorry, 12.
I think I had a hold on that one.
Okay.
Yep, I have a hold on that.
Okay.
All right. 1526 is today. 1548 is next.
I'll move on to pass.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have discussion?
Pretty self-explanatory.
Pretty straightforward bill to
Yeah,
me.
straightforward. They did their, as usual, House EDA did their homework, so, and Representative Lekas chaired the committee, so.
Further discussion? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Senator Perkins Coulter, would you like to take this one on?
Oh, sure.
A nice, easy one. All right, 1622, there is an amendment that Kevin has.
Okay, great.
It is, yep, is that 1499S?
Yes, it is. Is that the one I passed out last week? I knew there was one, yes, I think I did.
Mhm.
I couldn't remember which bill it was, so I printed them all again to make sure we have them. Yeah, all right, I think everybody's got it. I think we're okay. Sorry about that. We had some discussion on this last week, but we got interrupted or last time, 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
We got interrupted, I believe, in the middle of it, because I wanted to give people time to look at the amendments.
So,
Now that everybody's had a chance to review it, is there any questions on it?
the only issue I sort of started to think through was on line 17,
Which page?
page 1 of your amendment.
Okay.
It reads, the agency shall then have 60 days to certify the edited rule is the same in substance as originally filed.
Mhm.
And that replaces that the published rule is accurate. I mean, I think it's fine. But did you make that change, or was that previously?
Have to look back in the original bill, because it's been too long since I drafted this. So what I did is took the notes from, and I received, who was that from? I think that was from OPLC, if I remember correctly, yes, because they worked with the DOJ on it, that's what it was. OPLC worked with DOJ, I'm sorry, I'm having to just refresh my memory here.
All right, so
And
that
they provided
text-
some edits.
Okay, So that text came over from the House. Yeah, I reviewed RSA 541A30, and I thought the amendment was otherwise fine, so.
Okay. We okay to put this through as drafted?
I am.
All right. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of, well, I guess I'm moving, I don't know if I moved it yet. We haven't had any amendment, have we? No motion at all, all right, so we need a motion.
I'll move on to pass on Amendment 1499.
We gotta move the bill first.
Oh, I'll move on to pass.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. And I'll move Amendment 1499S.
Second.
Discussion on the amendment.
I think we just did.
All right. Seeing none, all in favor of Amendment 1499S?
Aye.
And Senator Carson moves on to pass as amended.
Yep.
Second.
Senator Perkins Coker seconds. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Move consent?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Who would like to take this one out? Any volunteers? No, I'll take it out. All right, I'll take it out.
Okay.
1622.
You got 3 minutes.
The only
I'm just
other-
kidding.
That's
How
a
much
trend
can you
from
do
the
in
other
3?
day.
Yeah.
That was an energy.
Do 2 bills. You got 3 minutes.
We did okay. 1688 is the last one we just heard, and I think I know we need a little bit of work on that, it sounds like.
Kind of like there was
16,
one
yeah.
issue raised, yeah.
Yeah. The only question that I have was that section that I tried to get some information, and I know that I would suspect that law enforcement uses AI to identify individuals, and I just don't know if we're gonna be tying their hands. I don't know, I think we just need to hear from them, and perhaps we can maybe invite them to come in to talk a little bit about if they use AI, if they think they're going to use AI.
I'd like to hear from, like, the AG's office there.
Yeah.
Because
So our
that's
deadline-
essentially where it's eventually gonna go, is that,
Yeah.
yeah, and.
I just hate this is a blanket for all state agencies. That includes state police, I don't know if it applies to our courts.
I guess my only comment would be is
Does,
this
because it goes
bill,
sensing.
this
It
bill
does.
has been through the House.
Yes.
And they are aware it was on today's calendar, I'm certain. It was duly noticed, and they didn't come here expressing any concerns.
Okay.
That's the only thing I would say.
So there's that.
The opportunity certainly has been there. They've not reached out to me, and
Okay.
apparently not to any of the rest of you either, as this bill was approaching. I mean, we're getting late in the calendar, that's all. We have to exact the rest of these FNs next
Yeah,
week.
my only concern, Mr. Chairman, is that we don't hear from them until it gets to the governor's desk.
I understand.
And then all of a sudden, there's
That never
problems.
happens.
I know.
What are you talking about?
So, I'm willing to hold this till next week. If one of
Okay.
you wants to reach out to safety
Yeah.
and have a conversation,
I will.
That's fair,
I'll
and I'm
reach
okay
out
with it.
to
All
the
right.
commissioner.
So that's it on the FN bills then. We, just for the benefit of the committee, we have
Are we holding 118?
I think it was
7, 8, we'll have 9
We did
FNs
this.
we have to exact next
Yeah.
week. That we'll have to go through after our hearings. We have
By
4
7
bills.
minutes, that's it, that's all you're gonna need.
There you go.
Yeah.
We do have 4 bills
3 minutes apiece.
on the calendar next week here, and we'll, so I will just say to everyone, they will be exec next week, and hopefully all of you will be able to attend.
Yeah, I will, and I'll have, I'll put in a call to the Department of
Okay.
Safety, just to make sure that, it doesn't conflict with anything that they're doing or ties their hands.
Okay.
I'm trying to see if I have a few minutes.
Well, let's, you have to leave right this minute? We'll just keep going until you tell me you gotta leave.
That sounds good, let's do that.
All right.
Okay.
Let's do CACR 13. We'll go back to the beginning of the list. There is an amendment for that. So I've created an amendment that will effectively copy the 13th Amendment from the U.S. Constitution and codify it into the New Hampshire Constitution. We heard testimony that there was concern from folks that if, the secessionists were ever successful and we became New Hampshire as a sovereign nation, that we would not have that protection in place. So this will answer that concern and put into we'll put on the ballot essentially for people to vote whether to adopt the 13th U.S. Amendment tailored to fit New Hampshire into our Constitution. So I guess we should have an amendment on, a motion on the bill. I will move, I'll move on to pass.
I'll second.
All right. And then I will move amendment 1620S.
Second.
Discussion. I guess I've given you my piece about it.
I think the point was to pull out what is in the Constitution. To not mirror that because it codifies labor practices, particularly in the prisons. So that was the intention.
Correct.
And so, putting that in just, I would, why not just say no?
Well, I think there was a valid point made that New Hampshire didn't have that protection in place, and so this will codify that protection that New Hampshire is against slavery, the same as the U.S. Constitution has done. And I think that will put that in place. And that will allow the citizens of New Hampshire to vote on it. I'm not comfortable doing a prison reform bill under the guise of slavery, and I think if the folks that have concerns with that, they want to come back and bring that back as a prison reform bill, we could entertain it as that. Senator Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to support the amendment. I was really concerned that the issue of prisoners and how prisoners are supposedly forced to work while they're here in our care in New Hampshire is equated to slavery. What happens to an individual in prison is a matter of policy, and it doesn't belong in a constitutional amendment. And I was shocked to hear this, that this actually passed the House, because we all know the very strict standards that the House has on constitutional amendments. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, we shouldn't just be amending the constitutional amendment for everything that comes along. And I did end up talking to House members, and they were concerned about being accused of supporting slavery if they did not vote for this. But I think what we traditionally believe to be slavery, which is race-based slavery, this is not what this addresses. This addresses whether or not someone who's incarcerated can be forced to work. The last time I checked, New Hampshire doesn't sell the labor of its prisoners, nor do we have chain gangs or road crews made up of prisoners. What concerned me was one of the individuals who testified that, it was like, well, I don't feel like getting up in the morning, I don't want to, blah. And there would be nothing that they could do to make them get up in the morning and have some sort of gainful employment in the prison system, which, by the way, they are compensated. They're not compensated at a minimum wage. But again, that is a policy issue. And that's why I would just say the people that supported this bill, please come forward with a policy statement, with a policy about how New Hampshire treats the people that are incarcerated. That does not belong in our Constitution. But if we want to incorporate into our Constitution that we are not going to use slavery or condone it or have it in New Hampshire anywhere, I would be fine supporting that. We do have seasonal workers that come in here, and there have been instances where they have been subjected to slavery-like conditions. And if we want to put that in our Constitution to say we are not going to condone this, we're not going to support this, we want to send a message to everyone that, no, we're not doing this. I'm fine with that, but I do think that the individuals that are incarcerated, that's a policy decision, and it doesn't belong in the Constitution.
Further discussion?
Yes, please. So the intention is to remove the bit that says, just to have, put before the voters, all persons have the right to be free from slavery and involuntary servitude. That's not hard. And to remove the except as a punishment for a crime where the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the U.S. or any other place subject to their jurisdiction. So, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying about, bringing forward prison reform, and that, you have some discomfort in the byproduct of an abolition of slavery in our Constitution may be that we have to review our our incarcerated policies. But that would be a byproduct. I don't think that, I think it's not a hard lift to take out of our Constitution and accept, all persons have the right to be free from slavery and involuntary servitude, period. And now we have accept. And I don't know, I find accept to be offensive. I really do. And I think we've evolved past it, and we can have our Constitution reflect the accuracy of our intentions and feelings, and the Constitution is aspirational, and it is a document that should accurately reflect the state's values, and this would accurately reflect our values. So I'm going to vote for it.
For the amendment?
No, not for you. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're talking about the
I'm not.
amendment right
I'm
now.
not going to vote for your. That is why I am not voting for your amendment, because your amendment essentially just nullifies the intention of the CACR in the first place. So.
Further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Amendment passes 3-2.
Make the motion brought to pass as amended.
I'll second. Further discussion from the committee on the CACR 13 as amended? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Will you and I, I'm sorry, is it 4-1 or 3?
No, 4-2. 3-2.
3-2, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to make
Sorry.
sure I wasn't clear.
Nope.
All right, 3-2. I will, you want to take this out or you want me to?
No, you do it.
All right, I'll take this one.
There is some value in being a chair. You get all the fun
Is that
ones.
value?
Yeah, it sure is.
All right, fair enough. All right, you still good?
So good.
All
Still
right,
good.
274.
274.
Yeah, after all that, I think they're gonna run quite late. So
All right.
274,
Now, I have notes that you have an amendment, or do you too?
No, I saw this, I have hold on here.
I have hold for line 30,
There was something about the
changing
stakeholder.
shall
So-
to may.
right, I had brought an amendment last week, which I believe
that
we passed
1489?
out, 1489, yes.
Oh, here it
Yep.
comes.
And Senator Carson, we wanted to make sure you were here to.
Yes, this is why we, I think I have, is that 1489? Yes, I do have it.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Does everybody have 1489?
Not yet, it's
Okay.
coming.
And so, the concern that was raised had been about the language of known stakeholders, and a few agencies were here to talk about that. And so, to try to make the obligation more concrete, I just changed that on line 6 and 7 of the amendment to read to past participants in similar rulemaking proceedings.
We should probably do a motion on this before we go further.
I'm
with
sorry.
discussion.
Oh, that's right.
If you're ready, yes.
Yep.
I move out to pass on HB 274.
Second.
All right, moved and
All right,
seconded.
now we can-
And Senator Perkins Coie, you want to introduce your
I
amendment?
move amendment 1489.
Second? And, all right, continued discussion?
Yes. I think I have said my piece, but welcome your feedback.
All right. Further discussion from the committee?
I saw that.
Yeah, I still, does this bring in V4? So on line 30,
May?
shall to may.
Yes, I was going to mention that.
Okay, because this was a DHHS had asked for
Note,
that
too.
judicial discretion.
Yeah.
Yep. So we could do this as a committee amendment and take, if everyone's okay with taking the language in 1489 and making an adjustment to line 30, Kevin, from change the shall to may.
Which line's that?
Line 30 on the original bill. I'm sorry. Yes.
No, as amended by the House, yeah.
Well, yeah, on the
Yeah.
bill we have, yes.
The bill word,
May to shall.
From shall
shall
to
to
may.
may.
Yeah, so that they, and may order the agency to pay plaintiff's legal fees. And I think that covers all of the notes that I had in mind, too.
That's all I got.
So the committee amendment will be the language, so you want to withdraw your motion to move the amendment 1489? And change that to a motion to move the committee amendment? Is that correct?
Sure. Okay.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, and so the committee amendment is all of the language in the amendment of 1489 and the addition of the changing of line 30 to may, from shall to may. Everybody good on that?
Yep.
Okay. Further discussion on the committee amendment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And did you want to, Senator Perkins Pope, are you moving on to pass as amended?
I am.
No second.
Senator Carson seconds. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Senator Perkins Pope, would you like to take this out?
Sure.
You good for another?
One more, yeah.
All right, 518.
Okay. So
I think I have an amendment maybe on, nope.
I think you.
Yes, I do have an amendment on, sorry. I wasn't, and I have to refresh my memory on what it does.
Is this amendment 1601 that you're
This
talking
is
about?
amendment 1601,
Okay.
yes. And this was an amendment that was requested from OPLC. This was language they provided.
Do you want to move the
Is this the
bill?
one?
Yeah, we'll move,
O2P.
ought to pass, 518.
Yep.
Second.
All right, and then I'll move amendment 1601S.
Second.
And I'm trying to get to, I can see what I changed. Again, these are technical changes that OPLC had requested. There we are. I knew I had an email from Mr. Oster. Yeah, he gave me 3 points that he wanted me to look at and change. I believe that I have them all in there. So we changed too many pieces of paper here. Section 3 of the bill. 2, get over there. There we are. So we made a change in part 2 of section 3 and added the language, or in matters appealed pursuant to RSA 31014 until the office has issued a final decision. And then in section 5, we removed the presiding officer and included, and added, including those held pursuant to this section, RSA 310, section 12(4), and RSA 310(13), the presiding officer may issue subpoenas for persons. Again, these were technical procedural requests that they asked for.
Yeah, I had looked through all of this and was fine with
Okay.
most of it. I just had a couple of questions, one of which I got answered.
All right.
And I, I don't know about the other one yet, but one of my questions was on page 4 of the amendment,
Okay.
lines 15 through 32. There was a medical review subcommittee that was completely removed from statute.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to the New Hampshire Medical Society about it because I just thought in the disciplinary proceedings there should be some clinical expertise present, and so the OPLC said they are reforming a panel, and essentially in SB 107 last year, or HB 107, we removed all the duties of this subcommittee, and so this is sort of a cleanup at this point, but they are reforming a panel to assist the office as opposed to the board, with the sort of complaints they received. So comfortable with that piece. The piece I didn't get answered was on page 3, and I didn't ask, so it's not anybody's fault but my own, but it just seemed like here, in lines 13 through 23, we're removing reporting. Well, sorry, let me restate that. Lines 10 through 23. We're removing reporting by courts and by malpractice insurers to the board about service providers, I think. And I would assume it's just the same idea, which is that those reports will now be to the office or to OPLC, but I just didn't see replacement language to that effect. So
Would you like to hold this bill and get that question answered?
yeah,
It's not an FN, so we can if you want to
okay.
do that.
All right, I'll try to get that one question answered, but otherwise I thought the amendment looked good.
So we're gonna stop right here and let you do that.
Okay.
Probably the cleanest thing we can do is withdraw the motions so that we can start all over. Otherwise, we start from where our motions are. So is everyone okay with withdrawing the motions made on these bills?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Kevin, we'll
John.
withdraw all the motions
Okay.
and we'll just start on it next time. And I'll give you the opportunity to do that. We'll try and
Okay.
take it up next week if you are ready.
I didn't know if you'd know the answer, but.
I do not, unfortunately.
Oh, good. Okay. I know how these things go.
Yes.
Okay.
Still good?
Yep.
All right, we'll do 1095 because that's on your list of ones you wanted to do while you were here, so we'll keep going with that.
Yes, this was that big complex one, so I just wanted to.
Yeah, I think I have an amendment on that too. Kevin, you should have an amendment for 1095. That would be number 1545S. Okay, so we can take a look at those.
My amendment was early, and I believe Senator Pearl's amendment is more comprehensive, but let's just make sure that they are overlapping.
Yes, this was
Yes,
the
they
600
are.
hours.
Yes.
And, yeah.
Okay, so we should consider Senator Pearl's and ignore mine.
Which one is that?
1545S.
All right, so we're getting rid of 1495S.
We're getting rid of 1495S.
Okay.
Yes.
This one was pretty extensive, and I'm wondering if this is the one that I have an amendment for,
New language coming.
about,
This is the 600 hours.
for the medical technicians. Because I've worked with,
No, this isn't the MA bill,
you sure?
the MedTech bill. I don't think so. No, this is,
Because I haven't seen the med tech.
that's further down. This is dealing with the licensure of the electricians, apprentice electricians.
Well, the bill is,
Or
yeah,
was
I
it-
know.
Or
I'm
was there two
looking at the
pieces to it?
bill.
Maybe, all right, let me
There's-
look at the bill.
There's
Sorry.
a lot in this bill.
Yeah. So I had that we needed 3 amendments, the electrician hours, the MLADAC piece, and
Yeah, MLADAX, that's what this one was, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so yours is just the MLADAX, and what about,
and the electricians are on the back.
oh, okay,
Yep.
there we are. All
I
right.
believe this
So we
covered
need
everything that we had in
5,
concerns in the testimony.
7.
Not I.
I have no plans, like whatever.
Yeah, I had 3 notes of things we needed, and I believe they are all included in this amendment.
that meet criteria established by the board.
Yeah, this came from
Yep.
Steve Rancourt.
Yeah,
and
I got
Simon
that.
Thompson.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move on to anything, right? All right, we'll move on to pass on 1095,
Second.
Second. Oh,
and then I'll move amendment 1545S.
Second.
All right. Discussion on the amendment,
let me
further
just
discussion. on
get
that.
to my copy of the bill really quickly. I just,
Sure.
okay. MLADAC, so this is amending section 8. Meet other criteria established by the board. If the applicant does not meet, the board shall not issue it. Yeah, I think that's fine. Yep. Looks good to me.
Any more discussion? We good? Tyrell, Joe, are you all set to go?
Yes.
All right.
I.
All in favor of
Yes.
Amendment 1545, yes?
Aye.
Excuse me, any opposed? And I'll move on to pass as amended.
Second?
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of 1095 as amended, ought to pass as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Move consent?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You want to take this one?
Sure.
All right, Senator Perkins Coker will take this one.
Kevin, I'll be looking forward to your volume.
Still good?
Still good.
1309.
Okay, that will probably be the last one because I believe I have a meeting with Judge King.
All right, 1309.
13.
Look at that, I'm not even gonna be the cutoff.
I'm gonna move ITL on this bill. 13.
Oh, interesting, okay.
Let's get to the bill first here, so give me 1 second. I'll second. Discussion.
Could you speak to that? I'm curious.
Senator Carson, did you want to speak to that?
You know, and when this bill came to us, I was like, oh, this is really good. But in speaking with Senator Bradley and Senator Susie, there are times when they have to hold bills. And this would have really hamstrung them really in order and to do their jobs as the Senate President. I also reached out to the Speaker of the House and had a conversation with him, and he agreed that there are times when they are asked to hold something, and they do. And so it just protects their ability to do that. So that was something that was not discussed in the public hearing. So I just think that they need that flexibility, and I'm comfortable with them having it. We choose them to be our leaders, and we need to trust that when they're holding a bill, they're holding it for a good reason. At any time, any one of us can go to them and ask why a bill is being held. So I just don't see the need to have this.
I also spoke with the Secretary of State's office, and they essentially supported all of the things that Senator Carson laid out and didn't feel this was a necessary bill, so I'll be also supporting the ITL.
Just a question, you know, I don't disagree. Do we have an internal tool that can tell, for example, like House staff where bills are, even if they are being held, just to address the concern?
I don't believe that there's an actual procedure.
Okay.
Most of it is just communication between the chiefs
Yeah.
and the Senate President.
Yeah.
So the chiefs talk to each other,
Okay.
the chiefs of staff. So they can find out readily, very easily, where things are and what's going on. But usually they just don't arbitrarily hold a bill. There could be something with OLS that is holding up a bill.
Ceremonial signing?
Yeah, ceremony. They want to get together all these people, and it might take a little while in order to do that. So it's really simple. If we want to know, all we have to do is ask, and we can communicate to our constituents where it is. So,
all right, thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of ITL? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. Okay. 4-1. Senator Carson, would you like to take this out? All right.
That's fine. Okay. You should talk to Donna.
I will, yeah.
Okay.
Can
I was
you do one more, or are you done?
Which one is it? So it's not too heavy.
Let me see which one. I'm just working off Senator Perkins Polka's list because she needed to go. 1585, that is not heavy. Oh, wait a minute. That may be no, that is not heavy. 1585?
Yeah, I was wondering about this one. I'll move on to pass.
Is there a second? I will second for discussion purposes.
It's creates the position of certified assisted living medication aid. Oh God, my goodness. We have started to see a fairly large increase in assisted living, I don't know, communities, I think is probably a good word, as our population is getting older. And I just see this as something that is going to help individuals that are living in these assisted living facilities.
So I originally had concerns about this bill when I first read it because it appears to be sort of going around the M&A licensure that we have in place and allowing a person to do some of the duties that we require further certification for. But as I listened to testimony and as I had conversations with people I know in the healthcare community and within the residential community, it appears that I guess I was convinced that the guardrails are in place within this bill, keeping it into a very defined and narrow area that I could have comfort enough to let this go forward. I certainly wanted to make sure that that was in place because the giving of medication is a very important role, and it's something that is taken very seriously within our healthcare community. And I wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence on this, and that we're making changes there. We're doing so with the advice and counsel of those that are on the ground, so to speak. And I was convinced that this would be okay, and that it was done in such a manner that it was really aiding and easing a burden on a situation that, as we heard in testimony about the eye drops for that gentleman, that they couldn't put in without having this ability to do so. So I'm comfortable supporting this now, and I hope you'll all join me in doing that.
Please, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I do have an amendment being drafted, and sorry, I didn't get ahead of you enough while you were going off this list. Well, it's just to address, there was a concern raised that a certified assisted living medication aids, just one of the duties described is the only thing that was a concern. I generally agree with everything you said, which is that they would be able to administer injections, which are limited to auto injectors or pen injectors, but I guess licensed medication nursing assistants, which are sort of the next level of qualification, aren't permitted to do that. And so, if you'll permit me, Chair, I think it would just be great to have an amendment to clarify that instead of us putting that language in the statute, that the Board of Nursing could do it be a rule as far as concerns the injection piece.
So I had a note that the Jackie Groda amendment addressed the injectable issue, if I can say the word.
Yes.
And so I guess I didn't go further thought on that because it sounded from testimony that concern had been alleviated with her amendment.
I believe this amendment never got adopted.
Oh, okay. I guess I may have misunderstood that. All right, well, if that is the case, then I would certainly be amenable to letting.
Right,
so you're looking at,
in the Groda I withdraw my out to pass.
Yeah, all right.
So that will give Senator Perkins Polka some time.
So we'll all agree to withdraw any motions?
Okay.
All right,
sorry,
fair
I
enough.
should have jumped in when you started that, but I'm
worries.
glad we went over it.
Because I've got to keep going upstairs,
All right.
so.
With that, I guess we will, I'll entertain a motion to come out of exec.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are done our business for the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
We all did really well.
Are you,
For the benefit of the
you
committee.
really need to talk to Donna about that bill.
Okay.
Okay?
For the benefit of the committee, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 FNs that we have to do next week.
All right.
So they will,
Dig in.
Clear
Any-
your calendar.
any
Bring
amendments
snacks.
that need to be done, any concerns you have, anyone you want to talk to, do it between now and then, because next Wednesday we're gonna do it. I would encourage and hope all of you are able to be here for the exec session next Wednesday.
Well, if I'd stop getting called into the house, that would be helpful.
Well, Grant can cover.
Well, some of them,
Greta
but yes.
amendment?
I actually
All
have
right,
it
with that,
mostly
we're done for
done.
today.
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
good enough. Great.